Hey loves! So one of my loves, her name is Sherryann Gray. She asked me to make a video about kids' nighttime routine tips. Now I'm not a pro, but I have two babies and I did the same exact thing with them both. So I was able to really perfect this, okay? The first thing with nighttime routines is it's really best to start right when they come home from the hospital. But if you're watching this video and you already have children who are not newborns, then obviously you can begin trying to implement it, but I speak from a place of I tried this right away. So the first couple of months, maybe months 1 to 3, the goal is to get your baby to sleep when you sleep at night. Obviously newborns sleep all throughout the day and they tend to be awake during the evening. But what I tried not to do was encourage them being awake by making the house awake. So when both Elle and Joel were home at 1, 2, 3 months, at night when they would wake up, I would still keep the house dark and I wouldn't force myself to leave the bedroom. I was nursing. I nursed both of them up until the 4th month when we stopped. So I would sit up in the bed with Joel, and with Elle I had a rocker, and I would keep the room dark and rock them. And I had my phone with me so I could read and go on, you know, social media and stuff like that. And I had snacks near the bed. I also had water in the room so that I didn't need to like move them around from the room to the downstairs to the kitchen. I didn't have to do any of that. The goal is to literally keep the house in nighttime mode, even though that they're awake, because they will adjust and adapt to the fact that it's not fun. It's not a lively environment like it is during the day, and it's not easy to stay awake when it's like that. And I'm not saying that when you do this, your baby's gonna just fall back asleep. That's not what I'm saying. They're still going to be up, but what I'm saying is don't allow for the environment to be one of turn up, okay? It's nighttime, keep it nighttime. Don't turn on the lights, don't go watch TV, don't go do all these things. Keep it nighttime and stay in your room. The next thing is making the decision to keep your baby in their own bed. This is a challenge for a lot of new moms because we want to co-sleep. We want our baby right next to us. As we're sleeping, we want our baby right here to be looking at them in their faces. And if you're a nursing mom, you want your baby right here on your boob so you can feed them. But when it comes to nighttime routine, all of those habits are going to be extremely difficult to break when it's time for your baby to sleep on their own. So personally, and I'm not telling you that you need to absolutely do this, but my love asked the question, so I'm telling you what I did. My baby slept in a bassinet right near the bed. Like, they were an inch away from me. The bassinet was right up against the mattress, and I could see them when they awoke, but they slept in separate beds. There were occasional times, of course, when the baby wakes up in the middle of the night and I was exhausted, and I would put them in a bed with me to feed, and that would be it. They go right back in their bed. And there's nights when they cry and they don't want to sleep in their bed, and I just had to, you know, shush them and pat their back and rub them and shake rattles in the middle of my sleep. As I'm going like this, I'm like trying to rub their backs, and I'm rubbing, and then I fall asleep, and then they cry and I wake up and I rub some more, you know, and I would do my best, shake the rocker. We invested in a mobile so that it could play music for them. My bassinet had like a little nighttime light, so it wasn't so bright, but I put the light on and the music on and they would be entertained, okay? You want to develop independence in them, and if every time they cry in the middle of the night you take them out and put them in your bed, then every night they're going to cry to be taken out and put in your bed, because babies learn habits. Now, I'm not saying that you should be cold to your baby and you shouldn't be loving. You have all the hours of the daytime to be loving, but when it's time for nighttime, if your goal is to have independent children who can sleep on their own when they're older, this is something that we did and it absolutely worked. So keep them separate from you. Now, at about 3 months, what you need to start doing, because your baby's schedules become a lot less inconsistent and more consistent. They're mobile, they're kind of sitting up on their own a little bit. I know between 3 to 6 months, most babies are able to sit up on their own, they're on the floor, whatever. So at about 3 months, what we did is at 6:30, we would give our babies a bath, 6:30, 7 o'clock-ish. Give them their bath, and sometimes it would just be a wipe down. We don't believe in washing our babies every single day for skin and dryness. And then I would nurse. And when I wasn't nursing anymore, I'd give them their bottle. We go up into the bedroom, keep the lights dim. We had a little table lamp, and we would keep the lights dim. I would play some really soft music on my mobile phone or put on the mobile, and between 6:30 and 7, that was happening, the bath, the feeding and everything. And then at 7-ish on the dot, and sometimes 7:30-ish, you know, between the hours of 6:30 and 7:30, this is happening. I'd put them in their bed. And I wait with them for about 15 so on minutes, and the lights would be completely off in the room. And the goal is to monitor them while they're sleeping for the first 15 minutes, but get them accustomed to knowing, like, this is nighttime, it's time to wind down. We're not playing, it's time to go to bed. At first, for JJ, this was really, really hard for him. He had a hard time with that. He would be in the bed, and he'd know I was in the room, and as soon as I walk out, he would cry. And we would deal with that for about a good 20 minutes of him crying. I'd go back up, I'd try to soothe him, and he'd just keep crying. He wouldn't like it. Usually after 30 minutes, he'd be so exhausted from crying, he'd just go to sleep. So I just knew that he needed a little bit more time to really get the point, like it's time to go to bed. And sometimes kids are stimulated so much to the point where they just can't turn it off on their own. You know, they don't have that, like, I'm so exhausted, let me go to sleep. That's why kids are so tired and so cranky when they're exhausted, and they just whine and they mope and they cry, and it's like, why don't you just go to sleep? Because they just don't have that natural inclination to do that. So I just knew for him, he just needed more time to go down. It wasn't going to be an instant thing. And that might be the same for your baby. They might not just go down just because you're saying it's time for bed. They might need a little bit of time to lead into that. So between 3 to 4 months, it usually takes about a month for me with my babies, for both of them, within the 4th month, they were good. 7 o'clock was bedtime. And we kept it that way. Same deal all the way through to their first year. 7 o'clock, we take a bath or a wipe down. We have a bottle, and we get right into the bed. I read a book, and I read books with them even when they were younger. When they would be nursing, I'd have one on the boob, and I would be reading the book and showing them the pictures and whatnot. And then we say our prayers and we put them down. So that's the routine that I established. It was creating a nighttime environment by keeping it consistent. The only time that we don't put them to bed on time is when we're out and about. So you have to be very careful with that, because in the evenings you're winding down too from work, from whatever the responsibilities you had. And it's hard sometimes to just jump up out of whatever you're doing to just say, let's go do this nighttime routine, because it takes about 30 minutes to an hour. And if you have multiple children, then, you know, that can be a 2-hour ordeal. So you have to be consistent. You can't say 7 o'clock is bedtime and then just be like, it's time to go to bed. You have to put them to bed. I now have a 3-year-old son, and Elle is 1-year-old now. And the way that we work it out is at 6 o'clock, the whole house has dinner. Everybody's eating dinner, so we get dinner. Elle goes to bed first, so right after dinner, she gets her bath or her wipe down. We change her clothes, her diaper, everything, take her hair out of her little elastic bands. She gets a bottle of milk, and she drinks that milk with us downstairs in the living room. She says goodnight to everybody, and then I take her upstairs. I read a book to her on the rocker, and I put her in her bed, cover her up, close the door, and walk out. That whole process takes from maybe 7-ish to about 7:30. Then I come down, and it's time for Joel. He usually will get a bath around 8. But sometimes I do it a little bit earlier. But the goal is to get him in bed by 8:30. The same way that the goal is to get Elle in bed by 7:30. So he'll get a bath around 8, sometimes a little bit earlier. And he's much older, and he understands the process because he's been doing it for so long. So for him, it's actually really easy because we've been consistent. 8 o'clock is his bedtime when he turned about 2.5. But before that, his bedtime was 7:30. So it's now 8:30. And partly the reason why it became 8:30 was because it was too challenging to put them both down at the same time. It's really difficult and really stressful on anybody to do 2 kids at the same time especially because they don't share a room. So he's 8:30. So anyway, bath, book, prayers, and good night, and close the door, and we walk out. Now, both Elle and Joelle don't have to be sleeping. It doesn't matter if they're sleeping. The goal isn't like, be quiet, go to sleep. The goal is to be quiet and be in your bed. Now he's at a point where he's usually ready to go to bed at that point of the day, because he's stimulated all day, that he's ready to go down. Both for Joelle, he sleeps from that time, 8:30, all the way until about 6:45 in the morning. Elle sleeps from 7:30. She wakes up in the middle of the night, usually by moaning. She's not like fully awake, screaming, crying, or anything like that, but I hear her moaning in her sleep, and when I go into the room, she'll like hop up, you know, and I'll give her her bottle, roll her over, and she'll go right back to sleep until about 7:30 in the morning. So the schedules are pretty consistent. They sleep straight through the night, with the exception of Elle waking up for some milk. Joelle does not use the bathroom during the night anymore. He's fully potty trained now. Before the potty training, the full potty training, we would wake him up in the middle of the night around 3 in the morning-ish, because my husband wakes up really early for work, so he'd take him to the bathroom before he leaves. And now he wakes up in the morning when he's ready to go. He goes to pee, and then he comes upstairs to bother me. He's my alarm clock. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents on nighttime routines. I hope I didn't miss anything that we do that's important. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. Of course, leave them in the comment section. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. And as always, I love you for watching.
Behind grabbing the wrong, catch up where buttons against me can't prosper. Armor of God is much stronger than the army of y'all. I'm ready for war. After that, I'm ready to ball, and after that.